The Huxley College of the Environment was founded 45 years ago as one of the first environmental colleges in the entire world. And in 1979, a student by the name of Brian BLIX took over the college newsletter. It was called the Huxley Humus. Well, in the 35 years since, faculty and students have built what is now named The Planet into the nationally award-winning publication that it is today.
This is the home of The Planet magazine, a quarterly environmental science magazine published by Western Washington University students in Bellingham, Washington. The Planet has won national and regional awards and has readership throughout the country. Founded in 1979, the magazine has 35 years of history and a long story that has brought it to where it is today. Huxley College began in 1969 as one of the first environmental colleges in the United States.
At the time when Huxley was founded, there was virtually no recycling. Words like ecology, words even like environment were new to most Americans. It was really the first college in the world that was dedicated to environmental studies and environmental research.
The founders of the college wanted it to be an interdisciplinary and experimental college that included all the major tools by which society could approach environmental problem solving and prevention of further problems. So environmental science and policy and planning and education.
Students and faculty wanted the environmental education at Huxley to reach beyond campus, to the community and the world. Students worked with the community to promote environmental action through an outreach program called Huxley Environmental Resource Bureau, abbreviated as HERB. HERB created the first recycling center in Whatcom County and occasionally published a small newsletter called the Huxley Humus. During the 1970s, environmental journalism was also starting to emerge, and many Huxley students were interested in pursuing the field. At the time, however, the journalism program was somewhat closed to outside students, and it was difficult for Huxley students to get involved with existing student publications. The Huxley Humus was available for students, but it was infrequent and casual. Students wanted their voices to be heard and an outlet for environmental journalism. In 1979, a student named Brian BLIX decided to make a publication of his own, taking over the Humus and changing its name and mission.
I was very critical of the Huxley Humus. It didn't have any visual appeal much at all, and the writing wasn't very literary, and it was kind of like granola based, you know. And so I was very much struck with the necessity to take it to another level. I was thinking of the Daily Planet, you know, Superman Daily, Clark Kent, and I mentioned different names like Ecotone or the Green Fuse or Ouroboros for some reason. I don't know why I came up with that. But then I mentioned The Planet, and then Matt said, well, how about the Monthly Planet? And being a bit of a poet, I like those ends, you know, it sounds right, the Monthly Planet, you know, and then maybe we'll even come out every month, you know.
The Monthly Planet was launched in fall of 1979, operating as a modest publication written and funded by students. John Miles later operated as advisor, and a Planet seminar was offered to students for credit.
None of us knew anything, had any experience whatsoever in skillfully or educatedly laying out anything. So we used everything to stick it together except for duct tape. We realized that wouldn't look so good, but it was basically snipping typewritten columns and cutting out these pieces of paper and then scotch taping them as parallel as we could.
In 1985, John Miles was appointed as Dean of Huxley, and Miles needed someone to run the Planet. Miles hired Michael Fromm, once introduced as the man who was fired from every job he's ever had. Fromm was a well-known journalist with a reputation for environmental advocacy. During the 1960s, Fromm had been the conservation editor for Field and Stream magazine and columnist for American Forest magazine. But Fromm went beyond the role of a conventional journalist, addressing environmental problems and naming those he felt were responsible for them. Michael Fromm took over as Planet advisor in 1988, in addition to teaching a class called Environmental Journalism at Huxley.
Michael believed that to be honest and truthful journalists needed to take a stand, and they needed to be activists, and they needed to have a point of view, and they needed to express that point of view And so he was much more fiery than I was, or I think many of the advisors were. And the energy, though, that he brought to the program was really valuable, because I think, he fired students up, he fired Huxley up, he was not afraid to ruffle feathers and vigorously defend the position he was going from.
As the planet and the environmental journalism courses grew in popularity, students approached John Miles and proposed that Huxley create a major for environmental journalism. The environmental journalism degree was created in 1987 as a collaboration between Huxley College and the Western Washington University Journalism Department. With the new degree, the Planet was granted university funding, and other student publications started to accept Huxley students. Today, the Planet is advised by REBEKAH PACI-GREEN.
I think Planet has survived for 35 years because it's resilient, it adapts, it hasn't stayed the same. But at the same time as it's adapted in its outward feel and its look, it has stayed totally true to its mission, which is responsible journalism about environmental issues. And because it has that core mission that can pass on from each editorial team to the next and from each advisor to the next, it's strong.
Hi, I'm here with Dr. Joel Swisher, who is the director of the Institute for Energy Studies right here at Western Washington University. Joel, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you having me.
My pleasure.
So you're relatively new here to campus.
Yeah, I've been on campus now about 6 months. I moved here from Boulder, Colorado.
So you're here for the director, to be the director of the Institute for Energy Studies. Tell us a little
right.
bit about what that is and what it actually means.
So the Institute is really a collaboration of 3 of our colleges. It's the Huxley College for the Environment, College of Science and Engineering, and the College of Business and Economics. And we have now, as of just the last couple of years, hired about a half a dozen new faculty members who are joint appointments in the Institute and a department in one of those 3 colleges. So they might be economics, they might be engineering, they might be environmental science, for example.
Define energy. What will students be learning when we're talking about energy?
Yeah, it's really important to take the right perspective if you want to get kind of the right answer when you think about energy. And by the right perspective, I mean the bottom up, to look at what drives all of our energy system. And what drives it is the need for energy to provide services that we use every day, whether it's lighting our office, heating our house, driving our car, manufacturing a product. All of those things entail services. We joke about, we don't care about kilowatt hours and gallons of gas. What we care about is, warm showers and cold beer.
Right.
Unless you're British and you like it the other way around.
Yeah, cold beer then warm showers.
But it's still a service, right? But the main thing is, if you look at it from that perspective, then you start to say, well, now wait a minute. We don't necessarily need as many huge power plants belching as much dangerous pollution if we can manage the technology in that chain of getting energy from the raw resource through the conversion process to the end use to become that service. If we use more efficient lighting, vehicles, industrial processes, heating and cooling, all that stuff that has all kinds of scope for innovation in technology, business models, policy, then we can use energy efficiency as a resource to replace a lot of the polluting resources that we'd rather use less of. And oh, by the way, the demographics are unbelievable for our students. Everybody who knows how to do anything in an energy utility these days is probably over 60. And one of these days, there's going to be a lot of retirements and a lot of need to replace those folks, not just at the entry level, but all the way up the ladder. So, from the students' perspective, I tell them they're going to be running the place in no time.
Yeah.
And that's just the utilities, but also in construction and engineering, businesses, in different levels of government, again, local, state, regional. So I interviewed and hired dozens of graduates, people with bachelor's degrees, with master's degrees, and often I had really interesting conversations with people who just didn't have a chance to get hired in our program because they just didn't have the toolkit to help me on day one. I want to make sure the students have that at the same time they're getting this broad Western education, with a good perspective. They understand the environmental issues, they understand policy, but they've got some depth too. And it's a really fine line to walk and a really narrow target to hit.
Being a green school that we are, energy obviously is a really important topic. Explain a little bit more about how a student would go into the program and also what a student would get out of the program.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of different programs that we have now. There's an energy policy minor, which has been on the books now for a couple of years. We have, I think, a dozen or more graduates this year in the graduating class have completed that minor. We also have a new energy science minor that's obviously more science-oriented, which is just brand new, and there'll be students in that over the next couple of years. We have our first full degree program, a Bachelor of Arts in Energy Policy and Management. It's designed so that this year's freshmen could, easily fulfill the requirements, and probably some of this year's sophomores, if they so choose, could join that program and graduate on time.
What is the greatest challenge that the energy industry right now is facing, and what are some of the great opportunities at the same time that our students are getting an opportunity to be able to address?
I think it's the integration of all that stuff. We have to deal with all the old legacy hardware and technology, and we can't just close the existing power plants and risk that we'll have blackouts. But we have to gradually replace it with a newer, cleaner, more efficient system. And how do you do that? When it means adding more power supply, say from wind power, that tends to vary in time, and you have to manage that as you rely on that kind of a resource. We need to work on the technology side, but also on the policy side, and especially on developing new business models and business cases for clean energy and for integrating it with the existing system in a way that maintains all the things that we rely on, all that super reliable electricity and fuel supplies and those energy services, that our beer is cold and our showers warm. But at the same time, we see the emissions footprint start to go back down.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
My
and
pleasure.
yes, I agree. Actually, for me, I'm sort of in between. I like cold beer and a hot shower sort of at the same time. Sometimes you just have a day like that.
Okay, well, just don't play your electric guitar in that shower and you'll be all right, I think.
Right on. All right, this is Dr. Joel Swisher, who is the director of Western's Institute for Energy Studies. Joel, thank you so very much.